Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am Sabrina Rising. Thank you for joining me. Tonight, we're going to talk about jealousy. And this is a really uncomfortable word. It's an uncomfortable feeling. This is something that we sort of want to. It's hard to admit when we're experiencing jealousy. It's maybe not something we really want to look at or get honest with ourselves about. And yet, it's something that we all struggle with. And I want to mention just at the beginning, right off the bat, that there is a distinction, a very common distinction between jealousy and envy. Jealousy is about, feeling angry or protective or territorial over or threatened over something that you feel belongs to you. So that is, typically the definition of jealousy and where that's rooted from. And envy can be more contextualized as like, longing for what someone else has, whether it's a spouse or a relationship or their appearance or, whatever it is that you feel they have that's better than what you have. And so there's a very subtle yet distinctive difference between these two. And I actually just want to combine these two concepts because they both are derived, they both come from the same source. Right. So essentially, jealousy is rooted in lack consciousness. Okay, so stick with me. As you know from watching my videos, and if you've worked with me, I talk a lot about early childhood conditioning and how we learn fear in early childhood. And some of us learned fear by being raised in scarcity, being raised in lack. In fact, it's this very normal part of the human conditioning process of, coming into this life as whole, perfect, and complete beings, as you heard me say before. And our caregivers go to work on conditioning us and instilling values. And in this process, we learn fear. We learn conditions during the conditioning process. That's what it's about, right? And so these conditions create a sense of insecurity. They can create a sense of, anxiousness, or, as I mentioned, a fear. And it can be a fear of not having enough food, or not having enough money, or not having enough resources, not having enough attention, not having enough love, not getting our needs met, right? Unmet needs will lead to scarcity, whether those needs are physical, mental, or emotional. Okay, so this is very important to understand that if you are a person who experiences jealousy, and I understand that there's a variety of ways in which we can feel this. It can be jealous of a spouse or that person's behavior in a relationship. It can be jealous of your friend or your neighbor. As I mentioned before, we're combining envy and jealousy in this conversation. So it's not just jealous of something being taken away from you, but also envious of what someone else has, right? So these two concepts really both come from the same place. They come from this idea that there's something missing, right? We're lacking. We're either lacking in physical resources, emotional resources, or the mental resources to have what other people have, right? To be fully self-expressed, right? And so the deeper experience, the deeper emotion, and again, if you've watched my other videos or you've done the work with me, all of our uncomfortable emotions, jealousy, envy, frustration, sadness, loneliness, grief, the root of these uncomfortable emotions is fear, right? Fear is always the primary feeling, the primary experience that gets activated, that's underneath all of these other uncomfortable feelings. Okay, that's where this comes from, right? We're afraid that we don't measure up, or afraid that we might lose something, or afraid that we might be abandoned, or afraid that we might be outshined, or bested, or whatever your context is for the experience of jealousy or the experience of envy in your life, right? And that can be for any uncomfortable emotion. Right. So the root of all uncomfortable emotions is always fear. And fear is what we learn in childhood. We learn fear in childhood because most of us grew up in environments that are conditional. So if I don't do this, this will get taken away. And if I don't behave in this particular way, then, this punishment will happen, or somehow love will be withheld from me for a period of time. And as a child, that is extremely painful. It creates a deep sense of insecurity in our environment. And we internalize that insecurity because as children, we don't have the capacity to vocalize. We don't have the capacity to advocate for our needs. We don't have even the cognitive development to say, okay, this doesn't feel good to me. Right. I need this instead. Right. We just kind of go along with whatever environment we're raised in, and we accept that to be true. Right. And we internalize this dialogue, and we learn to repeat this dialogue, unconsciously throughout the course of our lives. We play out this internal dialogue in our relationships. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is offer you some empathy and some compassion. If you're a jealous person, or if you experience jealousy in your life, or if jealousy is something that shows up for you often, whether that is in partnership, or when you're looking at other people, or comparing yourself to other people, this can be so paralyzing and so discouraging and such a painful way to live. Right. So however this shows up for you in your life, the real pain is just not understanding, not believing, and not feeling worthy, right, of who you are, of love, of having good things, of having your needs met. Right. As we are raised in scarcity and lack consciousness, we have this fundamental belief that there will never be enough, right? That we will never measure up, or that we will never have our needs met, or perhaps other people can have the successful life or the successful relationship, but that's not available to us. Or there will always be someone who is better looking, or has more, does more, is more, or outshines us, as I said earlier. And so this is a very painful way to live. So I would just want to offer you some empathy. You're not alone. This is a very human thing to experience. If, especially in early childhood, not just in our caregiver environment, but in educational environments, in school, we often, this is where we learn to compare ourselves to our peers, right? Do we measure up with the people that we are supposed to be having life in common with, whether it's our, in our age group, or in a particular activity that we're enrolled in? Do we have the same skill set? Are we as good a volleyball player or a ballet dancer, or whatever it is that you did as a kid, right? And so we learn to compare ourselves to other people, and then we have this internal dialogue that says, oh, I'm not as pretty as she is, or I'm not as good as he is, or as smart as he is, or as capable as this other person is. We have this internal dialogue where we compare ourselves, and this feeling is so painful. Right. And so unless we have a really strong support network, in our childhood, a very strong support system that is able to validate our feelings when, we don't succeed, or we don't get picked for the team, or we don't do as well as we'd like to do, or we don't, measure up to whatever standards we're setting up for ourselves, unless we have a strong support network that can meet us with empathy and compassion, we're just left with those feelings, right? We suppress them. And like I said in my previous videos, we internalize this belief that we're not enough, and this crystallizes, and it creates a pattern of behavior. Now we're actually behaving in ways that invites in the evidence that we're not enough, and invites in the evidence that there's people that are better than us, or that we always lose, or that somehow we don't have what it takes to be as successful as the next person, or whatever your dialogue is. Okay. So this is really important. Jealousy, envy, coveting what someone else has, comparing yourself to other people, feeling angry when someone else is successful and you're not, or feeling super jealous when it's sort of the same, but it manifests itself in a different way. Feeling super jealous if your partner or spouse is paying attention to someone else of the same sex or the opposite sex, or is flirting, and so there's a feeling of being threatened. Again, it's the threat that something is going to get taken from you, right? And that primary emotion is fear, right? And it comes from scarcity and lack. And again, if you grew up in not having enough of your needs met, you will fundamentally believe that you yourself are not enough. And you may never be enough until you do the inner work to sit down and learn how to fully accept yourself as you are, how to love and accept yourself, for what you look like, for where you are in your life, for what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, for the gifts that you have. We all have them. For everything about you, exactly the way it is perfect. right? And this can be very challenging to adopt this concept in our society, because our society is very focused on appearance, on performance, on success, on outcomes, on the way things look, right? And this is, if you scroll through any social media platform, it can activate a lot of this comparative thinking and envy and jealousy and things like that, especially if you're, if you're not someone who is living the life that you feel that you're meant to be living, which is my next point. This is so, so important. If you're someone who struggles with jealousy and with envy, I love to think of jealousy as a great teacher, because it is really mirroring to me where I haven't fully developed my own potential. Right. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're jealous of what another person has, for example, I'll be very specific, um, and you are comparing yourself, or you feel it's hard to be happy for that person, you're feeling like it's even hard to observe what that person is doing because you just feel so jealous, right? That is simply your soul's way of tapping you on the shoulder and letting you know that there's something that this person has done or has accomplished or is doing with their life that you really want to have for yourself, right? You really want that for yourself. And if you see it in another person, it actually already exists in you. So this is really important to understand. The gift in jealousy is that when we are coveting someone, what someone else has, or it's really kind of a warped way of admiring another person, right? If you look at it from the positive context, there's a deep, deep, deep admiration and perhaps a fear that we haven't done what we want to do with our own lives. We haven't fully expressed our own gifts or expressed our own talents. Perhaps there is a part of you that really wants to shine brightly, or develop a certain skill set, or develop certain attributes, or a certain level of expertise in some area, and you've been procrastinating, or you've been avoiding working on that part of you, or trying to heal that part of you, and so you haven't done it, right? We haven't done the work. And so when we look at other people who have done the work, that can provoke jealousy and envy as well. Okay. And so this is a very specific thing. I've noticed it in my own life, especially in my 20s, my early 30s, comparing myself to other people and feeling jealous of what they had and where they are. And it can still come up sometimes, where I see, I could feel like someone is more successful or has a bigger audience and so on. There is that little tinge that says, oh, there is a part of me that would love to be more fully seen, that would love to be more fully self-expressed. So in this conversation, the first place I invite you to look is, where are you suppressing your own innate talents, your own hidden gifts? Right? Where have you not given yourself permission to develop certain aspects of who you are? Right? There's an exercise that I do with my clients in one of the programs that I teach. And it's basically, write down the names of the people that you admire the most, right? The people that you want to emulate, or that you look up to, or that have had a major influence in your life. And then write down their attributes, right? And then when we do this exercise, we basically repeat back these attributes in the first person, and you realize that the reason you admire this person is because you're attracted to what it is that you have within yourself, right? So if you are attracted to this person, you're attracted to what this person has, you're even jealous or envious of what this person has, it's because you have these own abilities. You have it within you to be successful, to be, to shine brightly, to be talented, to be seen, to feel valued, right? That you're here and that your life matters and that you are a valuable contribution and you belong. right? Ultimately, we belong. We have our place here, And I think that when we look at it from the perspective of we're not here to compete, there's no such thing as competition, because if I'm abundant, so are you. And if there is someone out there for me to love, there's someone out there for you to love. Like, everybody has this access to the same resources. We all have access to the same success. Hi, Jonathan. Big hugs to you too. Thank you for being here. So we all have access to the same love that's in the universe, right? And so when we tap into this higher consciousness, we realize that this whole time when we've been allowing ourselves to live in jealousy, we've been allowing ourselves to live in envy, we've actually been holding ourselves back from being fully self-expressed, right? And with our own gifts and with our own talents and with whatever it is that we want to share with the world. Now, we'll talk about jealousy in relationships. How do I do this? How do I show this? Here we go. There's my friend Jonathan. Okay, so we talk about jealousy in relationships, and this can be a bit of a different thing, because this really activates a primal fear, right? The fear that something will be taken away from us, the fear that somehow we will lose this love, or we will lose something that we feel belongs to us. We will lose our feeling of safety and security in a relationship. And this can show up if you're dating someone, or you're married to someone, or you're in a committed relationship. And if you find that you struggle with jealousy and envy in this relationship, there is a deep fear there. There is a deep insecurity that you have about your place in that relationship, which is ultimately points to a fear and an insecurity you have with yourself, right? With your own value and your own worthiness to be loved. Now, if you believe that you're not lovable or not desirable, or if you're harboring a deep fear of abandonment, which comes from childhood, you're going to attract that perfect relationship with that certain someone who will trigger these experiences, because you're there to heal these patterns within yourself. Okay, you're there to heal and to take a look at, it's not necessarily what he's doing. And it could be sometimes that we attract people that behave in ways that are inappropriate, and we're doing that for two reasons. Number one, to be able to advocate for our needs and say that doesn't work for me, that's not okay for me. So we're learning how to set boundaries. And number two, to really take a look at our triggers and say, okay, I'm feeling insecure, I'm feeling afraid, I'm feeling unsafe in this relationship. Okay. And so if you find that you struggle a lot with jealousy and insecurity in your relationships, I would take a pause from dating and from trying to get your needs met in a relationship from another person. I would take a pause from that and do some deep inner work so that you can really heal the relationship you have with your own worthiness. Okay. And when you do this deep inner work, interestingly enough, when we actually sit down, because it doesn't matter if jealousy comes out in relationships or career or your body image or in whatever way it shows up in your life, in whatever way you experience it, when you sit down to do the inner child work and you really learn to love and accept yourself as you are, as I mentioned earlier, and sit with the wholeness of yourself, right? I love, whether it's through a mirror exercise, which is something I teach in my programs as well, or through journaling and just noticing patterns and noticing ways in which we judge ourselves harshly, we criticize ourselves harshly, physically, mentally, emotionally, for the feelings we have, for the way we look, and some of the thoughts we have. When we learn to suspend judgment and really practice that radical self-acceptance, that's what jealousy is trying to teach you. It's telling you to go in and sit down and really learn to love and accept yourself exactly as you are. And in that process of self-acceptance, a beautiful thing happens, right? All of a sudden, we give ourselves permission to shine. We give ourselves permission to be who we are. We get comfortable in our skin, right? We start to be comfortable in our bodies. And as we grow in unconditional love that's emerging from within and not something that we need from the outside, but we actually start to cultivate that experience from within. And again, this takes practice. But as we grow in unconditional love and self-acceptance, now it becomes easier to love other people, right? And all of a sudden you stop being jealous, you stop being envious, because you're giving to yourself what you feel other people have already mastered, right? They've already figured it out. They already have the relationship. They already have the body. They already have the wealth. They already have whatever it is you think you can't have for yourself because you're raised in scarcity and you're raised to believe that you're not worthy and you're raised to believe that good things get taken away or whatever your imprinting is, right? This is, again, there's no such thing as a jealous person. Okay. There are wounded people who are expressing their pain, their fear of being unloved, their fear of being alone, their fear of being abandoned by means of jealous behavior. Jealous behavior is a strategy to create safety. To create safety in your career, safety in your finances, safety in your relationships, safety in every area of your life. Okay, so hopefully this gives you a more empowering context, and you can stop judging yourself for being jealous or for feeling jealousy. Okay, this is normal. And again, jealousy is healthy in the sense where it's your, like I said, mentioned earlier, it's your soul's way of tapping you on the shoulder and saying it's time to develop this part of yourself. If you want what she has or you want what he has, then go get it, right? What is in the way of you being able to have the life that you want? It's always us. We are always the ones that are in the way of being able to have the life that is truly meant for us, the life that we so deeply desire, that we are so deeply aligned with on a soul level. We just can't get there consciously because we have all this conditioning in the way. We have all the layers of our childhood imprinting that is skewing our view of what's possible for ourselves, right? What is really possible for me, right, as a person. And I speak, like from personal experience. Again, I remember being a teenager and comparing myself to other people, and who looks like this and who's prettier and who has the better clothes, and who has the nicer house and all that stuff. I remember those feelings, right? And that deep feeling, those deep feelings of jealousy and envy really pointed to an unmet need I had. I didn't feel like I belonged, right? I didn't feel like I belonged. I didn't feel like I could accept myself. And so in those environments, I automatically felt like I had lost my power, right? And if you're experiencing jealousy, you're focusing on what other people are doing or what other people have or what's happening over here. And every time you do that, you give your power away. Right. So, my invitation in this talk today is for you to take your power back, for you to really sit with yourself and examine with rigorous self honesty some of the areas where you experience jealousy, where you experience envy, where you are coveting what other people have, and ask yourself, have I really given myself the opportunity to develop the gifts that I so envy in other people? Have I really given myself the opportunity to show up for me? Right? Have I shown up for myself, or am I just waiting for something on the outside to happen? Right? And why is it that I feel so unsafe in my relationship? If jealousy shows up in your partnerships, why is it that I feel jealous of other people? Why is it that I don't want other people to get attention, or it bothers me if my partner gives someone else attention? Where is that fear coming from? Why do I feel so insecure? Right? And it could be a conversation you need to have with your partner, and I invite you to do that. Right? If that shows up in your relationship, sit down with your significant other and say, I feel triggered when you do whatever it is. I feel triggered. It triggers a lot of jealousy in me. And, I recognize that these are my feelings, and I have a need for safety in this relationship. I have a need for security. That's all it is that you're looking for security. And it's possible that your partner can modify certain behaviors to accommodate and hold space for your process while you work through your own fears and insecurities. And this is key. You are responsible for your own feelings, right? No one can take jealousy away from you. All we can do is learn how to love and accept ourselves as whole, perfect, and complete expressions of consciousness as human beings, and with our own innate gifts and talents and our own unique beauty and whatever it is we're here to offer the world, and to develop those so that we can feel satisfied with ourselves. We can feel like we actually showed up for this life, right? So many of us are living in victim consciousness because we don't show up for life the way we know that we can, and the way we know that we need to, right? And there's a lot of childhood conditioning in the way of being able to fully show up for ourselves. And once we start to peel back those layers, we can claim our power, right? And we can start to let go of some of these lower vibrational feelings, feeling jealous, feeling envious, coveting what someone else has. And again, and also notice in those areas where you might be envious of what someone else has, what is your higher self, your soul self, trying to tell you about some of the gifts that you already have, that you know you can develop, right? That you know it's time to develop. Maybe it's time to start your own business, or maybe it's time to start your own podcast, or whatever. Maybe it's time to do the things that you admire in other people, right? Seeing jealousy and envy as, just simply a way of it. I really admire what this person has, and I want it for myself, right? So claim that. You get to claim that for yourself when you become willing to take personal responsibility for the quality of your state, which will affect the quality of your life, which will affect the quality of your relationships and your ability to be at peace with yourself, which is my wish for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you would love to connect with me or talk further about this subject, or have any questions about this topic or any other topic, I will include a link to book a free call, and I'll also include a link to join me at my upcoming workshop, my self-mastery workshop. It's a 90-minute course where you get to interact with me, and we get to do some deeper work on areas that you might be struggling with. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.